everyone, and welcome to a bit of a behind-the-scenes Victober video. It is September 1st when I'm filming this, and I already just want to finalize my TBR, which is outrageous. I know I don't need to do that. Don't even really need to have it final by October 1st because you can just fiddle with it, but I am like this. Why am I like this? And I want to organize it. So I have made a list of categories. And I have all sorts of different colors of construction paper I have cut up, and I've written down titles on these. So my categories that I have that will just give me the best 7th Victober ever are authors I must read more from, audiobooks, because I cannot just do physical books, poetry, which is a challenge this year, and when Roz told me about the challenge, it just awakened this desire to read so much Victorian poetry. And on top of that, I was already planning on reading Emily Bronte's poetry collection, but now it's made me want to add more, and poetry is so short, it's not hard to do that. Short stories, which will be in red, and you can tell because you're watching this later, you saw my TBR. My plan is to read a short story a day, and I have more than 31 short stories to choose from, so this will run over. I'll probably run out of enthusiasm for a bit right after Victober, but then hopefully it will pick up, and over the course of the winter, I will read. I think it's 45 that I have here all told. And then in dark green, I should have shown you the colors to begin with. In dark green, I have children's, which I will be reading some of the children's with my children, and then some flying solo. And then in the dark blue is the domestic, kind of, they all fall into the domestic realism, mostly. And then also for variety, I want some adventure tales. And so that is all in yellow. And then lastly, in pink, I made sure I covered all of the challenges. So I will go through these with you, and then I want to look at them visually and just try to make heads or tails of kind of what's a realistic amount. There's one shining year in Victober. It would have been the 4th, and I picked like the perfect amount of things and then had a great time and didn't feel pressure. I don't know if I'm going to manage that this year because I just keep finding out about more Victorian literature. It is wild how each time I'm worried I'll run out of Victorian literature that I want to read. One, classics, a good classic holds up to rereads very well. But two, I just keep finding out about new things. I keep doing deep dives. Also, I do have 2 books en route. They are coming to me. They'll be here by the end of September, and I'm just going to save telling you about those for a book buying confessions video. That will bump me up to 8 books. Still doing okay then over November and December. I mean, October, I guess, if I want to go ahead and buy. I can buy 4 books. I'm going to do it. Like, the project is going to be successful. Okay, so I'll just get the pink out of the way. For Marissa's challenge, my writing is very messy, in case you don't know. I can make it neat if I take the time to do it, but this is just a very quick slapdash project. For Marissa's project of a prompt of short stories, I most definitely have that covered. So I'm not going to read all these off because that would take forever. Then Roz's prompt of poetry, I'm just going to officially count Emily Bronte's poetry because that is my #1 poetry priority in the month. And then for my prompt, Petra's and Katie's Jane Eyre counts for them all: Chronic Illness, Bildungsroman, and Adaptation. And I probably will be watching both of the most recent Jane Eyre adaptations. Okay, that's all covered. Now I will just go in order. So the first one is authors I must read more from. Authors I must read more from. Mary Elizabeth Braddon, and I think Willard's Weird is the one I've settled on. I have not talked to Kate from the Novel Nomad about this. We always read one together, but hopefully she has access to the ebook of this. It looks so cool where a woman falls from a moving train, and did she jump or was she pushed? It's a mystery. Okay, I have not fallen in love with much Arthur Conan Doyle, but I just put him in the category for his novella, Beyond the City. It's just about people moving to the country, and it sounds intriguing. Then hardcore love for George Eliot. I have the Journals of George Eliot. This is one that I will be very leisurely with. I don't plan to finish in the month, so I don't feel stressed out having this be an additional book that I have in there. Then a Charlotte Mary Young, and I feel torn. So I have The Three Brides or Love and Life by Eros and Psyche. And by Eros and Psyche. Love and Life, it's a retelling of Eros and Psyche. So I kind of wanted to put two on here in case I didn't love one of them. The Perpetual Curate by Margaret Oliphant. I think this is another one I would not put pressure on myself to finish it over the course of the month, because it is a novel that is enjoyed best when you slowly sit with it. Torn Sails by Alan Rain. I loved The Welsh Witch so much, and I know Lucy from Lucy the Reader really loved Torn Sails a couple years ago, and then Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads also loved Torn Sails. Mahala of the Salt Marshes by Sabine Baring-Gould. I can't go on enough about In the Roar of the Sea, and I need to read more by him. Okay, now this one is just ridiculous. Mr. Harrison's Confessions. I was supposed to read it 3 years ago with friends. It still has not happened. Man and Wife by Wilkie Collins. I want to try more Wilkie Collins. I have a similar experience as Katie from Books and Things in that he's very hit or miss with me. I don't think I have any middling books by him. Like, I either love them or hate them. Country Stories by Mary Russell Mitford. This is top priority because it was a very special physical book that I ordered. The Claverings by Anthony Trollope. I don't think this will be hard to get done because it is an audiobook also. So this system is a bit confusing because I also have an audiobook category, but it makes sense in my head. And then I have The Master of Ballantrae by Robert Louis Stevenson. I really agonized over which Stevenson to read this year. I just loved Treasure Island so much. I really liked Kidnapped, and I'm worried I have picked the wrong one. And this is what has happened several Victobers. Basically, the last two is I just have picked a bunch of duds, and then it really kills my Victober energy. I should just jump ship more quickly with books I'm not truly enjoying. It was this or The Black Arrow. So hopefully either I will just jump ship quickly if I don't love this and get onto The Black Arrow if I'm in the mood for a Robert Louis Stevenson, or I will just say, you know what, this year I'm just not meant to love him during October. One of those two things will happen. Okay, then we have in light blue are the audiobooks. Okay, this is one that just has to happen. Raffles, the Amateur Cracksman, because this is just going to be fun. It's going to be full of fun. And the whole series, there's, I think, 3 in the series, and I think the second 2 are both not Victorian era, but this is. Now, one that was a more recent, but it keeps coming up. I keep hearing people talk about She by H. Rider Haggard. He definitely has Victorian sentiments, and I think that's maybe why he's not talked about as much, but this is just supposed to be a good old-fashioned adventure tale. And then lastly, why did I say lastly? I do not know. Mary Barton. And I did not have access to the audiobook until Audible was offering a membership for 3 months, half off, each month. I couldn't resist, and I saw that Juliet Stevenson narrates. Oh my goodness. So yes. And then Jane Eyre, also listening to the narration by Juliet Stevenson, and I don't care that it's going to be the same narrator for 2, and I'm way excited for both Mary Barton and Jane Eyre. I've only read Mary Barton once. But once. Wild card pick, Maud by Christina Rossetti. It's a novella by Christina Rossetti. And I was just on Hoopla browsing and saw that it was on there. So I don't know if I'll like the narrator, but I'll just switch over to an ebook if I don't like the narrator. And then A Shropshire Lad by A.E. Houseman. I realize there are a couple more poetry picks that should be on here. But poetry, I feel like, works really well being read aloud. I am a little bit worried since it's not plot oriented. I might get distracted. So we will see how this works out. Okay, that covers that category. And then on to poetry in purple. So Lewis Carroll, there's assorted poetry, an audiobook on Hoopla. So that might be an audiobook as well. Along with Matthew Arnold, famous Victorian poet, I have read nothing from. Okay, Thomas Hardy and I have a complicated relationship, but I feel like I could really get on with his poetry. So his collection, Winter Words. Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poetry. I want to reread Goblin Market. And then again here, double dipping, I have A Shropshire Lad because I have access to that audiobook. I really want to try How Lisa Loved the King. I only just found out about this narrative poem George Eliot wrote. And I have the illustrated ebook that I found for free on Project Gutenberg. And I only found out about this from the bit of reading I did in her journals. And then the one that I'm so excited for, Emily Bronte's pocket poetry, because, it's Emily Bronte, right? Okay, then we move on to children's in dark green. Sorry if all the paper picking up noises are very annoying. Let's just call it an ASMR video. Okay, Black Beauty. I really hope this is not a terribly sad animal story. You know how many animal stories are very sad? And I feel like there are some sad parts in this. I guess I'll be okay if it has a happy ending. I'm going to try Black Beauty with my boys, but first, we're going to try the one that will maybe be a little bit, require more of their attention span. Mostly Peter. Arthur, I don't think he'll really listen. The Little Duke by Charlotte Mary Young, which is historical fiction, but it's a children's book. And I want to try it. And hopefully Peter will like it, because if it's like extra reading I could get in when we're doing our morning audiobook, it's great. Definitely want to read Edward Lear with them. I want to get the audiobook, but also the physical book from the library. The Young Visitors. This is one I'll read on my own. It's a little short novella. I think she was 12 when she wrote it, the author. The Light Princess and Other Fairy Tales by George MacDonald. I'm very excited. I've just been loving mythology and folklore. And then The Bad Children's Book of Beasts. This is one I think I just have access to the ebook. I don't think the library has this, but on our tablet, it could be really fun to look at with the boys, especially because it's very, very short. All right, and then we just have two categories left. Beyond the City by Arthur Conan Doyle. We're in the domestic category now, right? Dark blue, domestic. Okay, and then I already mentioned Mr. Harrison's Confessions. That's just happening, and it's a novella. No excuses, right? No excuses. Country Stories by Mary Russell Mitford. I wrote Country Tales. I keep getting mixed up about the name, but she's very domestic. And that to me is going to be like reading Miss Read and Cranford. And so since we aren't doing a Miss Read read along in the month of October because of Victober, it'll be nice to have that one on the go. And Charlotte Mary Young and The Claverings. So I like having some different moods. I like having different moods and different formats. And then speaking of different moods, adventure tales. So The Master of Ballantrae by Robert Louis Stevenson. She by H. Rider Haggard. Willard's Weird, which is such an unusual title. And I forget the word weird, the way it was used in certain traditions. I think the Cornish meaning of weird, I forget. I read somewhere. It's not how we use weird in modern day English, although unless you speak Cornish. And then Trilby by George du Maurier, another kind of wild card pick. And I'm going to be honest with you, one of the main reasons I would love to read Trilby is because, he's George du Maurier, the author, is the grandfather of Daphne du Maurier. And that is incredibly intriguing. And it's supposed to be very plot oriented. I know one person read it for Victober a few years ago, and it just seems highly amusing. So here is the hard part. This is where I have to kind of make some hard choices. The category that is the most ridiculous, and I have, is the authors I must read more from category. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I gotta say, 12 is the most books I ever read during a Victober. And it was an outrageous number. It was my second Victober when I had lots of energy, and I just kept reading new favorite after new favorite. And so that's why they just kept coming. But okay, so what has to happen? Let's see here. Country Stories by Mary Russell Mitford It just must be read. It must be. And I have to read that one. Okay, I think Man and Wife is going to be lower priority. What I'm going to do is the ones that don't get picked, I'm going to put like in an envelope. And if I'm hitting some duds and I want some backup, I will come to this. Okay. Mr. Harrison's Confessions, that's a little novella. Charlotte Mary Young, I really want to read something else by her. I want to gradually read all of hers. I don't feel at all worried about putting the Journals of George Eliot in here because that's one I don't feel pressure to read. And then Willard's Weird, that has to be in there. Okay, I think The Perpetual Curate by Margaret Oliphant will be second priority. Torn Sails by Alan Rain, second priority. And Beyond the City by Arthur Conan Doyle will be second priority. Although this is a little novella. It's not long at all. But I very much want to be reading Mahala of the Salt Marshes by Sabine Baring-Gould, The Master of Ballantrae by Robert Louis Stevenson, and The Claverings by Anthony Trollope. Okay, all right, this is going well. So I cut 4. I cut 4 of those. I will put it over here, put those for safekeeping. This is therapeutic. It's going to be okay, right? Okay, and then this is where it gets a little bit confusing though, because some of them, like I have The Claverings written down 3 times. So I guess I'll just put both of my Claverings together. This is my domestic category, right? Dark blue is domestic. So Claverings, check, check. Charlotte Mary Young, check, check. Okay, so it will either be The Three Brides or Love and Life. Country Tales by Mary Russell Mitford, or Country Stories. I have it written down 2 ways in here. This is a very organized operation. Mr. Harrison's Confessions, check, check. Okay, Beyond the City by Arthur Conan Doyle will go in an envelope as second priority. Alrighty, now adventure stories. Trilby by George du Maurier. I think I'm gonna keep it. Willard's Weird, I'm already had it in my green category. She by H. Rider Haggard, I have to have this here. It just sounds like so much fun, and I have access to the audiobook as well. And then lastly for adventures is The Master of Ballantrae. Okay, then for poetry, no, I'm gonna wait on poetry. The pink category, these are all ones that are just definitely making the cut. They were top priority, so I don't even need to mess with the pink category. But for my official TBR video, which if you were interested in that, you would have already seen it, and I will address the ones that are counting for prompts. Okay, now the light blue are audiobooks. A Shropshire Lad by A.E. Houseman is only an hour and 20 minutes long. But I don't want to rush poetry, so I would not like to read it all in like one day. Maybe a couple poems each day. Maud by Christina Rossetti. It is a little novella. Let's put it in the most likely category. Mary Barton is for real happening because I am hosting a read-along on my Patreon. That is not optional. Jane Eyre is most definitely happening. And then She by H. Rider Haggard. I just think that has to happen. And Raffles, I think just has to happen because that has been on the list for a very, very long time. Okay, so we just have poetry and children's left. All right. And then these, but I'm not organizing these. These are just staying and they're getting all put in a jar and I will get through them at whatever pace I get through them. Okay, and these ones are so short. The Bad Children's Book of Beasts, I think, can stay. The Light Princess and Other Fairy Tales, that can stay. I was wondering if I had another card for that one, but I don't. And then The Young Visitors is so short. I'm going to put that with Maud by Christina Rossetti. Edward Lear's poetry, that will be so fun with the boys. The Little Duke and Black Beauty. Those are both staying. Did I have another? Okay, I don't have other ones for those. Okay, and then that just leaves poetry. So immediately I'm keeping Emily Bronte's, Emily Bronte's The Pocket Poet Edition. How Lisa Loved the King by George Eliot. I think I just gotta keep because I just gotta. And then A Shropshire Lad by A.E. Houseman. Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti. That will take me probably a half hour to reread that poem. Okay, now I have here, Lewis Carroll's poetry, Matthew Arnold's poetry, Winter Words by Thomas Hardy, and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Just the poetry feels really hard to cut, but actually, just jumping out at me, I think I want to pick Matthew Arnold's poetry and Winter Words by Thomas Hardy. I do wonder about the accessibility of Matthew Arnold. I wonder if he's going to be, I'm worried, like Gerard Manley Hopkins, who I feel is really hard to understand a lot of the time, if I'm being honest. Okay, so I'll put Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Lewis Carroll in the second priority list. Okay, so I did make all of these cuts. I did not cut one of the adventure tales. I did not cut one of the adventure category. All right, I'm just going to move this just so you can see the visual of all these together. Okay, here it is all together. This is kind of outrageous. So let's see how many items this is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. But I mean, I always rationalize this because some of them genuinely are short. Goblin Market is short. How Lisa Loved the King is 36 pages. The Emily Bronte poetry, Edward Lear poetry, and Raffles is not long. Mr. Harrison's Confessions. They're just staying. They are here to stay. This is the 2022 visual of my TBR. Will I regret this? Only time will tell. Keep following my channel, and hopefully I'll actually have vlogs for everyone this year, and you'll be able to see how it all worked out. It's working. The Master of Ballantrae by Robert Louis Stevenson. I really agonized this year. Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Oh, are you recording?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I felt restless, so I came home early.
Oh, nice. I'm just doing my TBR organization video.
Okay. Carry on.
Okay, carry on.